afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Trader Merlin Show. It is your Thursday edition, one day closer to the weekend. Today's topic is a little off my scope of what I normally talk about because I'm certainly not a legislative bill expert by any stretch of the imagination. But I had questions. One of them asked, am I happy that this bill passed? Well, it passed one milestone, passed one obstacle, and I guess once it gets closer to the finish line, we should all take a look at it and see where it might benefit us, might hurt us. Obviously, we have different opinions on what exactly should go in that bill, but we'll talk about some of the pieces in there today. How's my back? Still not good. A little bit better, slightly better today, but as soon as the show's done, I'll go back to my horizontal position. If only I could work upside down. Haven't been able to figure that one out yet. Yeah, Marcus says lower taxes are good. And on many fronts, yes, they would be good. But if we are lowering taxes in one area, how the government is already, if we lower taxes, the government is getting less money from us. And the deficit just keeps on growing. So they got to get that from somewhere, right? They got to get that money from somewhere. And we'll figure out where that's going to happen, I guess, down the road. So I just went through and I picked out pieces I wanted, and I got more information on them, and we'll just see what this looks like. I'm going to just kind of say real high level what it might look like. The tariffs are another issue. We'll get money from tariffs. We might get taxes from this new exploration if we open up some resources, government resources, and say, hey, we'll give you Yellowstone to go mine oil at or go drill for oil. There's land leases that could come up there, so that's another way. Also, the tax credits for clean energy and things like that are it sounds like they're going away. So let's go Doge plus e-growth. Let's go through some of them. So I just tried to quickly paraphrase. Again, when we have these bills that go through, it's not necessarily that this is a Trump thing. This is every president will try to push through. And my biggest concern in all of this is you can hear the talk track from the president saying, let's get this bill done, move it forward, go, go, go. There certainly is an argument to be vigilant here and read these things very slowly, line by line, because it seems like every time we get a big bill, whether it's Democrat or Republican, there's all this fine print detail that, stuff gets sent around that shouldn't happen. And who knows, maybe Doe should get to review this bill and have a say before it gets public. So part of the good of this is it bundles multiple priorities into a single legislative effort. So we're trying to tackle many different things here. While that's good to me, that's also very bad because when you bundle everything together, a lot of it becomes convoluted and maybe confusing on how this money is supposed to be allocated or where money is going to be coming from. So that makes it a little bit nerve-wracking for me when you do so much. But at least you get a lot of things accomplished at once. It says momentum. Big bills can generate strong political will and media coverage, which I think we'd all agree is what's going on right now. Everyone seems to be talking about the big bill. Negotiation leverage. So when you have so many different topics in there, there's a lot of compromise. Now, what was interesting with last night's vote at the House of Representatives is it only passed by one vote. So what that tells me is even though we can run through this and say what we like and what we dislike about this bill, what's ultimately going to happen, it's probably going to stall at the Senate for a while. I can't imagine this going through very quickly. There's going to be a lot of negotiations, and some things that went through in this approval will get rejected, revised, updated, and we'll have something else to work with. But as it stands now, it is great negotiation power. Hello, Rita. Hello, Aga. And hello, everybody else who's my regulars here. I put public visibility. One clear package is easier to market and rally support behind. It is easier to just get it all done at once, but it makes it much more challenging, right? For me, the old adage is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. This is like trying to eat that elephant all at once. So there is an argument for breaking this apart so that each component is much clearer. Right now, I have a feeling when all the dust settles, all of us are going to look and go, oh, well, we didn't need that, or I don't like that. Shouldn't have happened. Well, it's part of getting the whole package. It's an economic stimulus. So it says large spending bills can jumpstart sectors and create jobs. Right. So this question all of a sudden becomes, where is that spending money going to come from? If you're cutting our taxes and you're removing a bunch of programs, you might be able to get some from removal of programs, which we'll discuss here in just a second. But typically, those large spending bills will jumpstart pieces of our economy. And once we get close to the finish line, I will be taking the entire tax bill, the entire bill, which should be available for us to read every line item of it. And I'll run it through ChatGPT and say, which sectors of this bill do you feel are going to get the most positive impact? Because there will be market segments. And Can you guys name one market segment right away that if this bill were to pass today, what's one market segment that you would say I'm looking to go short? I'm curious what you guys think. I know some of you know a lot about this bill, so while you type in what industry might be a good short here, I'll run through the next part. So Margaret, I'm with you on that one. Clean energy, solar, they're going to peel back I think it's $500 billion worth of credits for that. That's pretty significant. Let me go here. I had it on the screen here under energy. So here's some of the energy highlights. Yeah, Big Ed says anything green. What about weed? That's green. Anyway, repeals or phases out the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, green energy tax credits, saving $500 billion over 10 years. So certainly there's a lot of money that can be pulled out of all these green incentives and tax credits. And what does that mean for people buying new EV cars? Will we get anything like that? It does expand oil and gas and mineral development. So on one hand, I think that it's great for the economy to have more expansion and drilling and more dependency on the United States as opposed to others. But as we've talked about repeatedly, in my mind, if I think about more drilling happening, that's going to cause the price of oil to go lower and lower. And ultimately, that could actually hurt oil companies. It's going to create more competition. And does that mean that you're looking at ExxonMobil and Chevron and Phillips 66 as potential shorting opportunities? Well, maybe we can look at those charts here as we progress. One big piece in here that I think we'd all say is probably doable and good. It's not really energy. It just says modernizes air traffic control systems for safer, more efficient travel. Yeah, I'm definitely behind that. Let's make that as safe as possible and no longer have Black Hawk helicopters running into airplanes and killing people. That just seems ridiculous. Lower taxes may lead to higher Treasury revenue. How do you see that? So Treasury's getting money from taxes, but if you lower taxes, I don't know if that necessarily means higher Treasury revenue. I think it's the opposite. It's less Treasury revenue. What will happen is they're going to be issuing more and more Treasuries to cover some of the shortfalls. Now, they'll pull money out of green. They'll pull money out of other areas as well. Or boats crashing into bridges, man. It was funny to watch. It's just unfortunate that there was tragedy involved with that. It was just like watching it in slow motion and having so much video footage there is crazy. One area that I'm sure we have a divided audience is healthcare. So healthcare, some of the big highlights says, introduces Medicaid work requirements for able-bodied adults effective in 2029. It also cuts out SNAPs, which is a, what's it called? Supplemental nutrition. Trying to memorize all these acronyms off the top of my head because there are way too many of them. But I think it's supplemental. Yeah, I'll have to, it'll come to me. It's a supplemental something. I just can't remember exactly what that one was. Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the SNAP. So that's the food stamp program, and if you cut the food stamp program, there are people that are in financial despair. Maybe, we had it, WIC, it was Women with Independent Children was the program. And here you have an individual who may be not making enough money to put food on the table. And, I would argue that in my opinion, and this is just me, I'm okay with food stamps as long as it's actually used for food and not being sold and, being used for alcohol. But I think there are definitely some people that need assistance, and cutting that program out, I certainly don't know if I would be behind that portion, but that's one of those pieces that gets cut in there. Yeah, the big stuff, Margaret, is Medicaid. And I'm not up to speed on all of the different pieces affecting Medicaid, but that was one of the contentious parts of the debate going back and forth between the Democrats and Republicans in this bill that passed the House of Representatives. So we'll see if it gets any worse, and maybe I can get some clarity on it from other people because that's not my area of expertise. What else was in there? Border security. We all have different stances on immigration. I am an immigrant. We're actually technically, I think we're all immigrants. Every one of us. But I went through the right channels. Of course, it was long before this was a big issue. And, my mom came over here with the green card. I did all my citizenship training, did my tests, and I'm an American citizen. It's funny because I had to choose at 18 whether I wanted to be an American or be a German. And it's like, America, that's where I live. Of course I want to be an American. So what is in the border security perspective? Well, there were three big things that I gleaned from it. Number one, it's going to fund 701 miles of primary border wall, 900 miles of river barriers, and more. That's quite a bit, all right? it's going to hire 10,000 ICE employees, 5,000 customs officers, and 3,000 border patrol agents. Okay, so that's offsetting some of the layoffs that may be coming, but we're definitely adding in, close to 20,000 new jobs. That's fine. It says targets the removal of 1.4 million undocumented immigrants from Medicaid, reducing costs. So we talk about cost savings. A lot of these programs and government aid is going out to immigrants, and if they're not paying into the system, then I guess I'm going to alienate some people here. But if you're not paying part of the system and you're here illegally, in my opinion, you should be sent back or given a fast track on how to become legal, so you are now part of the tax system. And I think that's where the big bottleneck is for me anyway, is if you want to become a legal citizen, it's very difficult to do so, right? It's not like, I just go down and fill out these applications and now I'm a taxpayer. It's complicated. It makes it very challenging and can take some time to get there. So that certainly could be an area where they get a bunch of money. If you've been living here for 20 years, they should be considered to be a citizen. I agree with you, Margaret. But if you've been living here for 20 years illegally, you've been living off all the services that you and I pay for, right? I pay my taxes, and I'm okay paying my taxes, but it should go to my fellow Americans who are also paying their taxes and doing their part. I don't want to sound heartless, but if you're not willing to take the time to become a citizen and be a part of our tax-paying system, I don't think you should be here. This is the land of opportunity, so let's at least get everyone to have that opportunity. Yeah. Let's see. Big F says 1.5 million illegals off Medicaid is the cut many are concerned with. I have to look into it. I mean, if you're illegal, you go. We'll help you go back to where you came from, and you can start that process of coming in legally. I think things change, and this will certainly be a contentious topic going forward. They buy products here and pay taxes here too, unless they're getting paid cash. You're still paying. Correct. They're purchasing things through taxes, but they're not working and paying Social Security taxes, getting Social Security administration pieces. Gio, my back's not doing good. Back's not doing good. We'll get there. Yeah, Luis, you're right. They are paying taxes if they're buying certain goods and services, so I'm okay with that. What else do I have on here that's just pieces? This is where it's going to hit most of us with regards to economic growth. So this is tax cuts, preventing a 22% tax hike for 62% of the taxpayers. There's also stuff in here that I didn't put in where for people like me, they're saying if you run a pass-through entity, you can now deduct, I believe it was 40 or 60,000. So this should encourage everyone to start an LLC, right? I use an LLC for my trading company, right? That's what I run my trading through. And now all of a sudden I will be paying less taxes to that LLC. Great, because I have a higher deduction limit. So it goes from 20,000, I think it said, to 40 or 60,000, which is phenomenal for me. I'll just take more deductions through my LLC and put a little bit more in my pockets or in my trading accounts. I know, Canola. I give myself a week. My back injury happened last Wednesday. It was definitely feeling a little bit better last night, but today, sitting in a chair, I'm doing a lot of video editing. It's hurting, but we'll get there. August, it hurts very complicated if you are illegal and want to pay taxes to Tribe to the U.S. Right, and shouldn't we make that process easier? Make you a legal citizen. If we tell ourselves we're the land of the free, the home of the brave, and we also have a Statue of Liberty that says, give us your downtrodden, your weary, we should be letting people in, but they should all be under the same obligations and commitments that most of us are. I think it might be 40, but still, Sava, that allows me to double my deductions, which is great. I get maxed out at 20,000, so now I can deduct $40,000 worth of pass-through. Yeah, love it. So this bill, again, the reason I decided to just kind of whip something up here real quick is it's not passed, right? It passed the House of Representatives and just barely. My assumption is this is going to go on for a couple of months at the Senate, even though you've got a lot of Republicans in there. Just because they wear that little R on their chest doesn't mean that they are going to be voting this one through or approving it right away. So there's going to be a lot. You have a lot of expenses, 20K. You should have expenses, Margaret. When you look at running a trade, when you're trading, what are some of your business expenses? So my monthly expenses would be all my computer software and subscriptions that I have. I rent out space in my house for my studio. So this studio now is an expense cost, charge myself monthly rent. You have all my lighting, all my video, my computer monitors, anything that touches Trader Merlin is getting written off, or trading as well, right? Yep, internet is a percentage. So I don't deduct all my internet. It's a percentage of what this house uses that I deem to be for the trading business and broadcasting and things like that. So yeah, all that gets written off. You know, the expenses for me to do a podcast. So I pay $30 a month, which is not a lot, just to have a podcast. And I don't even get that many views on it, but or listens, but I know a lot of people like to listen to podcasts, so I keep it going. That gets written off. My Midjourney, my OpenAI subscription. So all these subscriptions, and yeah, there's just a lot you can write off. And I'd much rather do that with pre-tax dollars versus after-tax dollars. So I'm stoked on this. Utilities, a portion, property. Yep, you got it. You know, if you have a 3-bedroom house, you can, if you have a trading business and you're doing it through an LLC, all your computers, equipment, you can rent out the room. Technically, you can rent the hallway that goes to the front door because they need access to their quote-unquote office. And again, this is nothing that is devious, sneaky, deceptive at all. This is in the tax code. And ultimately, what I would like to see is, I hate all these exceptions and little things that you can do here that if you have someone who's really smart, you can save a lot of money. This is why you get a good CPA. If you're doing TurboTax, it's not going to ask all these little details, and you won't get anywhere near as much of a deduction. So in the future, ideally what will happen is we'll have a flat tax code. And it doesn't matter what you do, here's what you're paying. That would be way easier, I think. I believe personally that the tax code is designed to be convoluted so the average person doesn't understand it and pays more taxes, and the rich and wealthy who have great CPAs and lawyers understand exactly how to exploit the inefficiencies of our tax code and make themselves a lot more money. Luis says food for employees, dinners, trips. Yeah, I got to be careful with that. I don't write off all my meals, but if I'm going out and we're talking trading, we're talking financial markets. If, for example, I took one of my friends out that's going to redo the graphics for the show, I took him out to lunch. Of course, that's a business expense because it's all about graphics for the show. So yes, could I buy tickets to the Lakers game and write off those tickets? Technically, yes, but depending on what you do, you could raise some flags with the IRS, which I don't want to do. So if I don't do big ticket items anyway, I'm not going to spend $400 on a ticket to a basketball game. It just seems stupid to me. But anyway, yes, you can write off so much more. There's a couple books out there. One of them is called Ink Yourself. I can't remember who the author is, but it really is kind of an eye-opening look as to why you would want to start an LLC or an S or C corporation based off your needs. And it has all that to do. It's just passed on through the bottom line. For example, if you golf for customers, is a great deduction. Unfortunately, I'm terrible at golfing, so I'd rather not embarrass myself on the court. But yes, the listeners on the cruise, that was going to be a lotto winning trip. I still play. Oh, LLC for Dummies might be a good book as well. But when you talk to an expert about it, if you just start an LLC, and yes, in California, you're going to have to pay $800 per year for that. The deductions are far greater than that I'm saving going through. Medical expenses for your back. Well, luckily I have health care through Trading Academy, so I'm fine there. Funny. So again, this did not pass. This is not implemented, but the first real big hurdle is done. Again, I think this is going to be a long process. I don't see this getting remedied anytime soon. I say at least a couple months. What's the question mark there, Les? So you talk about fish on air. Are those trips to see them? No. I'm not writing on my tax. That would be pushing the system too far, right? It has nothing to do with my show. Now, maybe if I broadcast my show from there, I could make that argument, right? If I got did a live stream from there, I don't know. That would be pushing it, in my opinion. So no, I don't do that, Les. I don't do that. Obviously, when I travel for Trading Academy, all those expenses are covered by Trading Academy. But yeah, I need to do a lot more. And if they're going to raise the amount of deductions, I will probably do more. Could talk to people about your channel and trading at the same time. Yeah, theoretically, yes, I could, but I don't abuse it. But I'll tell you what, if that number has jumped up to 40,000, then I will probably find ways to spend more of that money on things that I want for my business. For example, I have a phenomenal SLR camera here, which is it's the Sony EV-Z10, which I was using for the show. That was a deduction because I needed that. I needed a camera. Could I have bought a cheapo little webcam and done it? Absolutely, but I wanted something nice so that if I want to go and take pictures for myself and use a nice camera, I have it. Now, I just use that for photography because I have a new web camera, which is way smaller and better. Lee says, I have an insurance license which allows me to sell financial products. TD Ameritrade would not allow me to use my LLC to trade through because of that. Huh. Well, I just trade through my name. It's just, and then put it into my LLC. I saw the big green, the gold dome. I don't know, Margaret. That's a great question. I do not know that. My CPA does it all. I just say, here's the camera I bought, and he takes care of everything. So much easier. Big Ed says, and that explanation exactly how better tax rates and deductions spur growth and revenue. Yeah, I guess you're right, because I'm going to try to take advantage of that extra $20,000 deduction, and I will be most likely buying goods and services which help the economy. So yeah, I guess you're right in one sense, Ed. I would certainly help bolster the economy. What makes me a little bit nervous is where's the government going to make up the big shortfalls? So Tofi, there's C Corps, S Corps, LLCs. LLCs have a little bit more flexibility. When you get to S Corps, you've got much more stringent reporting and tracking that you have to do. I think I had a C Corp because I could deduct 100% of my health care, whereas with the S Corp, I couldn't. That was years ago when I had my C Corp, but I had to unwind that, which is another lengthy, arduous process. Okay, so let's go back to our markets here today. Obviously, we had a continuation, if we will. We're talking about the Bitcoin price chart. Actually, I'll wait here because I got a whole bunch of comments coming through. John says, flat tax, eliminate the IRS, 100%. Get rid of the IRS. Now, if we were to do that, how many IRS employees are there? You guys take a guess. How many IRS employees are there? Don't look it up. Just guess. I'm just curious what you guys think. How many IRS employees are there? And the reason is if you get rid of the IRS, those are all people going to be out looking for new jobs. Not that many now. Yeah. They did some workforce reductions, but I have a number going back to January or February of this year. February of this year was 90,000 employees. So that'd be 90,000 people looking for work. So roughly 90,000. That's a lot. That's a lot. But yeah, I'm all for it. If this was a ballot initiative, I would absolutely vote to remove the IRS and do a flat tax. Now, I wanted to know what that flat tax conditions were. But if it just says, here's your number and you're paying it, great. You know, there are certain things that we take advantage of in a tax code. For example, if you're trading, obviously you get better tax treatment if you trade futures, right? Because you've got that 1256 contracts, which are 60-40 long-term capital gains, short-term capital gains. You pay more for short-term capital gains. So I just got my card to it. I'm writing it off. But is it a business expense there, Daniel? If you get rid of the IRS, there will be plenty of people who would never pay their taxes. Well, you know, I mentioned this in my crypto program the other day when we talk about the future of money and digital assets. If you follow the trajectory of what's happening with the US dollar and digital assets, probably within a decade, all money will be on our phone. All of it. And all transactions will be documented. So they'll know exactly how much you earned and they'll automatically tax you that way. So you won't even have to hide from taxes. There'll be no more tax evasion because your money goes into a government account that's tracked, monitored, and takes taxes out of it. Makes it easy for them. I think that's the future of it. But 95,000 of those be doing taxes for 4 billion people. Shake my head, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of it's automated. Certainly, there's a lot of people that aren't paying today. Just ask Wesley Snipes. And the crazy part is, you know, someone like Wesley Snipes was making a lot of money. Just pay your taxes. You know, if you have a bigger tax bill, that means you're making more money. So it's okay. You know, I don't mind paying taxes. Obviously, I'm going to do whatever I can to, within the law of the tax code, pay as little as possible. We should all be doing that. You know, taking deductions. So every year, you know, there's one simple item. You guys can take a $500 deduction for charitable donations. So go through your closet, get rid of some clothes you don't want, take it down to Goodwill and say, oh, it's worth $500. There you go. Got a little receipt. Take $500 off every year. It's not much, but it all adds up. You know, maybe what I'll try to do. I used to work with a tax guy, but he now lives in Israel, so he's moved. But I'll see if I can find a tax professional that will want to come on. I asked my tax guy if he wanted to come on. He's like, nope, I have no interest in being on camera, and I don't need any more clients. I'm like, oh, well, it's not, must be nice. So there will be nothing called living off the grid in the future, according to Merlin. There will be living off the grid, right? But you won't have access to the monetary system. If you go fast forward, Mike, let's say 10, 15 years, your only access to money will be through that centralized government thing. So there'll be black market, right? There'll obviously be a black market for money. There will be bartering, I think would be, for those living off the grid, you're going to be trading goods and services. Yeah. So I do believe that there will be a living off the grid. I just think that the definition of what that grid is changes. If you transact, it will be known. Correct. In the future, if you transact. You know, what I mentioned the other day, I can't remember whether I told you guys or I talked to my crypto program because I've done so much teaching this last week. The UAE now came out with an authorized stablecoin for the country. And what will that, in my opinion, that's going to be the first step. And then they'll see how that goes with their approval. And then they will issue a central bank digital currency, a CBDC, that's completely controlled by their central bank. So ours would be controlled by the Federal Reserve. There'd be government oversight by the Senate. But all those transactions, that database of where every single dollar has gone digitally, will all be tracked. It's coming. Absolutely. I always wonder how much to cost my Goodwill donations. $500. That's all you can deduct anyway. It's your guaranteed mint, so you can get $500 deduction there. Yeah, absolutely. Most people don't. All right, let me go back to our markets here. I want to make sure we could talk about some of this because the video I did for TikTok. Did a TikTok video last night. We were talking about this S&P 500 here, which we came up, hit that 6,000 mark, sold off aggressively, and the 6,000 mark was an anticipated overhead supply zone, right? You thought it was going to hit that level and come back down, and then the expectation for me anyway was that we were going to see it come back down to 58.36, and that 58.36 is this high point from back on, well, it's very close to high point on March 25th. And notice today we came right down to it. We did break below a little bit, down to 5,828, but now you have that fairly unchanged day. It shows up as down 0.08%. I'll call that unchanged, and the candle there is a doji. Dojis represent indecision. So you got indecision right at it. What was supply has now become demand. Tomorrow, based off this, should be an up day, unless we get some crazy panic follow through. But just based off that pullback into demand, should be more of a positive day based off of that. The 10-year, this is the one that people are really freaking out about, and rightfully so. We saw the 20-year bond and the 30-year bond both breach 5% yesterday at the auctions, which is not a good sign. We had to drop down 1.48% to 4.529 for that 10-year. But the trajectory and path is still there. I'm in the camp of higher highs from here on out, at least until we get up to this blue trending line to the downside. They also came out with that new strategy partnership UAE. I don't know the strategy partnership. I know that are you talking about the Saudi Arabian one with Donald Trump buying Binance? That was a $2 billion transaction done through stablecoins, as I mentioned, that were created by World Liberty Financial with no oversight whatsoever. Boy, some shady stuff going on there with that World Liberty Financial in Saudi Arabia. Day before long weekends are usually boring, flat. Yeah. And by the way, I'm not going to do a show on Monday. I won't be doing a show on Monday. Nope. Sorry. I'm going to take some time off and hopefully go to the beach. Get a little bit of sunshine. See if I can even out this tans. I've been sitting indoors all the time. Let's see. It's putting in higher lows on the lower time frame. So, well, in here, if you look at on the daily time frame, it is making higher lows. So, in my opinion, it's making higher highs and higher lows since late March, and therefore, I think that's going to continue, especially with kind of the bad showing we had for that 20-year bond. I don't have that on here. If you just want to know what's happening with the Japanese yen, I'll rather do that through an index here and go through, I think I have the Nikkei on here. Mirrors the U.S. pretty good if you're talking about Japanese futures. So this is just the Nikkei Japanese market. I don't have that currency on here. I have just the spot currency price for USD JPY. Oh, 40-year yield? Yeah, I don't know, Saba. I don't look at that stuff. No offense, I barely look at the Nikkei anyway, but I don't look at their bonds. No clue. Well, now that you got me curious, I'll have to check that one out offline. All right, go to the top. Work our way down here. So we talked about that 10-year crude oil continuing to slowly drift lower. Nothing to talk about here, right? It was down 0.6 on the day. No big deal. Gold, down 0.56. Now, this may be because there was a little more optimism today for the equity markets. It kind of felt like there was some more optimism, even though we didn't have a big up day, right? At one point, we look at that S&P, we were in positive territory, came back and ended fairly unchanged on the day. So it felt like there was some optimism after this big, ugly red candle. My concern was that this red candle from yesterday would trigger a selling spree, and I thought we'd get a really aggressive sell-off down to about 56.78. But so far we've held, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen. Your Russell, which had that really big sell-off from that overhead supply zone, also has a doji pattern, but this was different than the S&P. You notice the long bottoming tail on the Russell. That's a hammer formation. Now it's a kind of a hammer cross, if you will. So I would do the same thing. If it gets above that 2059, it's actually 2062. If we get above there, then I think we're coming right back up into this yellow zone. So it's starting to look like more of a buying opportunity on the indexes. There's your S&P, the NASDAQ as well. Actually did make a slightly lower low today. It doesn't look as strong as the other indexes like the Russell or the S&P because its only real demand zone is back down here at the origin of this gap from Friday, May 9th. So that brings us all the way back down to 20,147, which is about 1,000 points lower. Not that good. Dollar index. So the Dixie on the day was nice, up 0.25%. And from a chart perspective, who cares? It's not doing anything other than following this trend. So again, my bias is to the downside, and I still will stay on the downside. Now, the big story is Bitcoin. So you can see I have the high mapped out from yesterday. That was 110,150 is that top blue line there. And we just tiptoed across it, just barely. And today we had follow through, and we closed above it. Well, we're just about to close above it. So this looks pretty good. But let me show you the spot price because I believe that's better. There we go. So now we're at 110,938. I mean, the whole candle is above the previous high. So this looks pretty darn good. And Margaret says, how high will Bitcoin go in the next 3 weeks? It's a great question. I mean, I don't know for certain, obviously, but let's just go and draw a trend line on here from the bottom, and I'm going to go through where I see it having most points of contact, and that would be there. So let me stretch this out, and we'll go from just pure trajectory where I see it in 3 weeks. All right, so I'm going to stretch this line out here just to there. Okay, and you said 3 weeks, and today is the 22nd, so there's 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I think you're going to see Bitcoin at 118 if you go with this current trend. Although, I'll be honest, I really feel like you're going to see this thing move faster. I think right now, because it broke and you have what's called blue sky territory. One of my old colleagues used to call it blue sky, and I love it because when we look at the Bitcoin price chart, it's easy to look back to the left and try to find out where the overhead supply levels are, where it might have resistance. There isn't any now. And it really feels like more money is pouring in, the optimism is pouring in, and I think that trend's going to continue. So there we go. Now, does that take me up to my 250 by the end of the year? Not at that angle. Let's see. Not at that angle. Actually, let's see. No, it wouldn't get there by the end of this year if we kept that angle. So let me just draw it there with that angle in place. That vertical line is November. So if that is in fact the angle there, it says about 218. Look, if we end up by November at 218,000, I'm going to pat myself on the back because that's close enough to 250. Okay, I'll take a victory lap like Jerome Powell should be doing. But that's where I see us headed. I see us headed up to that trend line. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to have a couple periods where it's not going to be this straight line. I think you have like a couple days or weeks where it goes sideways or slightly down, and all of a sudden has a huge surge to the upside. So yeah, it seems impossible right now, but when you look at how Bitcoin has moved in the past, for example, let me go out here. I'll put a weekly on here just to see it. Here's a weekly, and let's go logarithmic. Okay, one sec. So there's your logarithmic scale of it. Does that look unreasonable? I think everybody, when you look at this, you'd say, well, it looks actually reasonable that it could get there. It might even seem like it's undershooting it. Yeah, it definitely looks less crazy on logarithmic, absolutely. But I'm standing by it, and to tell you what, you go back a month, I've had people tell me I'm nuts because people keep asking me. I said, I still think it's possible. I definitely think it's possible that we could get to 250. Now, it would be a stretch. I mean, we really have to see some government say we're buying more and more. But Saba says, remember when 6,000 SPX sounded crazy? Yeah. So I stand by it. I still think we're going to get there. And I will be celebrating when we do. The big challenge, and this is a huge challenge for me. I'll let you guys figure out what you want to do with your crypto. But the big challenge for me is if we get to 250 on Bitcoin, what do I do? My gut says you've had a phenomenal run and the 4-year cycle is very relevant. It continues to hold true. So, if I sell everything and it keeps on going up, I'm going to be kicking myself. No, Sav, I'd never buy a Lambo. No way. It's not my style, my man. Not even interested at all. Not interested. You guys know what I'm going to get. If I got a brand new car, which I probably won't, it'll be most likely a Toyota Tundra, double cab, 4x4, top of the line. Nah, not a Camry, although I do like them. If it doesn't drop, then you made your profit. To go back to my average price on Bitcoin, it would have to drop a lot. A lot. Maybe a Rivian. I do like the Rivian. So Andres asked, when do I plan to sell? The plan for me is before we get somewhere before this November date. Now, the challenge for me is I have it on a ledger. I have it on a cold storage device, right? Looks like this, little tiny device. It's on there. So I need to, when we get close to that, I need to move it back to an exchange to cash it out and go to stable coins or back into US dollars. The plan for me is this. Whatever I end up closing out my crypto positions, which I plan on doing October-ish, right? I think the pattern shows this November it's going to start to sell. And it's going to sell off from whatever number and drop 70 to 80%. That's what history has said 4 times already. So if I'm going to move it over there, I'll mark down that number. So let's say I've got X dollars. Whatever that number is, I will write that down and I will take all that money, put it in my trading account, and I'll just actively trade it for the next year. And then I will take that exact amount of money back into crypto and rebuild my portfolio, most likely heavier on Bitcoin. Have a bank do that when they start to do custom? No way, Sava. Not a chance. Can you sell that on cold storage? Well, actually, you can. You can, Big Eb. You can sell it, but you go through secondary sites and you pay way more money. So you go through like a third-party site and they charge a ton of money on it, so it's not worth it. I can get transaction fees down to about 0.2% on Kraken. So 0.2%. If you use Coinbase, you can get about 1.4% on their lowest level. But normally you're going to be paying about 4.5% on Coinbase. So I'll probably move mine through to Kraken and then let it sit there and just kind of trail stop it until I feel, okay, now's the time. Because is this time different? It's one of the shirts they sell in Thailand. It says same, but different. I'll leave it to your imagination on what that might be representing. But in this market, you look at it and say, is that 4-year cycle different this time? And let me get rid of some of these lines. I'm going to get rid of all my pertinent levels here, but it's fine. We'll put them back in. If you look at this, that 4-year cycle, these bars represent the 4-year cycles. And you have a huge rally up. This is actually the last year of the cycle, excuse me. So last year of the cycle has that big surge. What I could do is I could map out every 4-year cycle. So watch, let me show you how that works. Just so you can have it here as a visual. So there's one 4-year cycle. This one gets to be deleted. And that was the last of that cycle. So this one technically goes to here. Now, unfortunately, I don't have data going back that far, but this is from 2001. This will be the $250,000 Price target. Oh, that's the millions. Jeez. 250,000 would be there. Okay, so there is 4-year cycles. There's 1. There's 2 in the middle here. And you can see the first 4 years of that, or first year of that cycle, heavy sell-off. Now, what I don't have is this one that goes from 2014 backwards. Unfortunately, the data here only started in 2011 on Bitstamp. It's the oldest you can get. There was no marketplace for it really back in 2010, 11, 12. Right? The interview quote was that, wouldn't liability be on bank to do any transfers or whatsoever? Yes, if you have the bank do it, but the bank's going to charge you a lot more money. Their transaction fees will be much higher. Hopefully, again, I hope that it happens, but I'm not going to send my money to my Chase bank unless, let's say by November, JP Morgan Chase has some crazy deal that says, hey, you can send your Bitcoin here and we'll custody it, and they go 0 transaction fees. Then maybe I'll do it, right? I'll do it because I'm going to try to save money on a lot of money. Are you in charge of Trading Academy's X account? Nope. I'm not. Why? What happened? Did something bad come out today? Now you're going to make me look. Hold on. Let's go check out X. We're trying to put fun, engaging content out there on our X channel. So I'm part of the development of what goes out on that account. But yeah, absolutely. Give me just a second here as I bring this one out. Let's go search. Now you got me so curious. Explore. Read how the... Oh, so this is the buttonwood tree one? I know. You know what it is? You know what it is, Tofi? We're trying to get past that. Just, to me, there's a bad background with Online Trading Academy. We kind of want to separate from that. So it's Trading Academy now is what it is. I don't see the one you're referencing. I saw the Dow Jones Industrial Average initially launched. So we'll bring it up here. So this is Lisa. Oh, here, this one. So your broker signed an agreement that laid the foundation for your actually make it. Yeah. So yeah. That's how it happened. I mean, that's how this whole thing started under the buttonwood tree. It was basically guys just sitting around trading commodities. Oh, I'll trade this for that and this for that, and then it just kind of migrated and grew. It's a cool little history. The buttonwood tree. Yep. The way you said it, Margaret, was like there was something bad, like we did something bad or there's a bad error on it. But we're trying to put more engaging content out there. We put surveys out there on a regular basis. So if you guys, if you're on X, follow Trading Academy. Let's see. What was a cool one? This was a cool one too. On this day, Dow Jones Industrial Average launched, tracking 12 key stocks to gauge U.S. economy. 12. Now they're at 30. And then they do the Monday morning must knows, different types, just more informative stuff. We're not going to do T&A. That could be taken in many different ways there, Mr. LaRusso. All right, let me go into economic calendar and earnings for Monday. Obviously, I'm very bullish on Bitcoin. I love the way it's been moving lately. It just feels like buyers are stepping in at pretty much every turn. I love it. So Thursday, what do we get on the economic front? Well, there was actually good news and okay news. Good news was our flash services manufacturing numbers moved up, right? So you have a nice little pop to the upside here from 50.8 to 52.3 for services, and then from 50.2 to 52.3 for manufacturing. That is a pretty good thing. At least you're getting above that 50 mark, and it's moving in the right direction. The one part that was not great was the existing home sales. You can see here they had 404.02 million, where the previous number, they thought we'd increase to 4.15. We actually declined. So not a big miss by any stretch, but that's not the best news to have out there for your Thursday. And then unemployment claims. This is good news as well. Unemployment claims were expected to rise by 1,000. They actually dropped by 2,000. So not too shabby news there. And on the earnings front, let me bring up that one. I guess I could real quickly tell you what happened out there today because there were a few companies that reported. I don't know why. This should be updated already. Let me check and see if we can spot the Costco. Costco. Oh, man. What? Tell me they're going to do a stock split. I just want to know. Just say it. They're doing a stock split. Come on. They got to have one soon. We thought this last earnings. Oh, so never mind. That's why. I'm like, wait a minute. They should have reported already. This is next week. Derp. Tell me you're stupid. Yes, I'm stupid. That was next week. There you go. I thought that was next week. And also next week we've got NVIDIA. So Intuit beat on earnings. Great update, up 8%. You had Analog Devices, took a beating though. They beat earnings. They were down 4.6. You had Workday as well. Beat earnings and they missed. So again, this is why I just hate earnings because you never know which way it's going to go. Autodesk as well. They beat earnings and were up 3%. But for tomorrow, do we have any big names? The answer is no. No, we do not. We've got all sorts of international companies reporting on Friday. You've got Booz Allen Hamilton. Okay. Not a liquor line. Frontline, PLC, but the Buckle. I mean, now you're getting really tiny stuff that's almost irrelevant as far as moving markets. So nothing big there. No need for a rate cut. We got the jobs. Well, they may do the rate cut for economic growth. If the inflation number at the next, I think the next reading will be the one that really determines whether we get a rate cut or not. So they need a little bit more data. If we see that the inflation numbers are in fact steady and under control and growth continues to slide, then I'm going to start focusing on a rate cut. Inflation still is the big major one, right? If inflation keeps rising, then they're not going to cut rates. They may actually raise rates. But right now, I think they're in a good spot to just hold. The economy is doing fine. If you look at the market, you've got great trends going on the broad market indexes. Now, this does not reflect a bad economy. This big sell-off here reflected uncertainty, not a bad economy. It reflected the potential for trade tariffs derailing our economy, which I do believe, like Bill Addis, that there's still damage to come. I don't think we're out of the woods yet with all the tariffs and the impact, but it still looks pretty darn good, especially if you put this on a longer-term time frame. It's hard to argue that we still are in a giant uptrend and we're about to start another leg to the upside, right? Just like we did back here in 2020 or back here in 2022. What do you got there for June 20th, the next meeting? Let me verify and make sure that is the date. I think it was. Wow, I just changed my fonts on my screen. It's so much smaller. I thought it was the 18th, but maybe it's the 20th. Come on. Oh, summer starts. Okay. It's the 18th is the actual meeting announcement. Sorry, I thought you were talking about the meeting announcement. So I was at 30-year fixed rates climb over the next 20 years. How will that affect home prices on an annual rate? It'll slow it down, right? The higher that a 30-year fixed rate mortgage gets, the less likely people are to qualify for one, unless they reduce lending standards. But that probably is not going to happen after 2008. So if we continue to see the 10-year move up, which 30-year bond or 30-year mortgage is based off the 10-year, which doesn't make any sense, right? Shouldn't a 30-year fixed rate mortgage be based off of the 30-year bond? I never understood that one. I have to get some clarity from someone in the industry on that. But it's based off that 10-year, and as that 10-year keeps kind of creeping on up, those mortgages are going to continue to become more and more expensive. And ultimately, it could bring things down. And I think that could cause a housing market crash. So I don't know about crash necessarily. There's people like myself, I think many of you've refinanced at a much lower rate. You built a buffer around it, built yourself what Larry would say, a financial moat to protect yourself if you lose your job or your markets go down. And for me, it's always important to have dry powder, if you will, whether I want to buy into the equity markets or the housing market. And if there's always opportunities that pop up that you want to have cash available for. So, our goal is to just build up that cash pile, make sure it's working for you, whether that's in short-term treasuries and you're rolling a bond ladder there, or you're doing an option strategy, but keeping things very liquid in case you want to allocate your capital someplace else to get you a higher rate of return. I was looking at 1950 to 1980 and calculate home rate increases. Well, it was crazy. Back then, people had a 16% 30-year fixed rate mortgage. That was nuts. I can't imagine signing on a dotted line for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 16%. That would unbelievable. Blows my mind. All right, that's going to do it for me, guys. I want to wrap up here. I'm going to go get horizontal and give my back a little bit of a break. But tomorrow is Friday. I will not take my pain meds so I can have a glass of whiskey on the show with you guys tomorrow. We'll have some fun with that one. So, open topic tomorrow. Today was driven by a question asking me what I thought of the new tax bill. Well, it's not just a tax bill; it's a spending bill that does have some tax cuts with it. So, all in all, I guess I'm straddling indifferent on what that bill is. There's certainly some pieces of it I like. There's other pieces of it I don't like. I don't like that we're pushing through very quickly this without really scrutinizing every line and questioning every line. And that could take some time. If it was me, I would want to make sure I knew every single thing that's in there. I've just heard and seen in the past where a bill goes through and you're like, we've got this spending bill, but all of a sudden now there's a $50 million line item that goes to fund, Trump's golf habit when he retires. Like, wait, whoa, what? No, you're not going to do that. Arosti. All right, I'll give it a shot. Cover the market leaders showing relative strength versus the SPX tomorrow. Okay. Okay. I'll do that one tomorrow. Tomorrow's whiskey is tax write-off. Business expense? No, that's out of my own pocket. Me just saw the pay meds. Oh gosh, no. I don't like medication, period, let alone mixing it with alcohol. That'd just be a recipe for disaster. All right, well, that said, if you guys have certain things you want me to cover tomorrow, email me at tradermerlin@gmail.com. I have a couple questions that I need to get through that have come in over the past week, and I have not done that yet, so I'll do that on tomorrow's show. That said, have a great trading day. Hope it's a nice little bullish one to the upside, and we'll have some trade conclusion for me. I'll see you tomorrow.